So the Sumerian civilization is the oldest known civilization we have written records for, and they talk of people coming from the sky, the Anunnaki, that created humans. The Sumerian lived in Mesopotamia at 5000 BC to 1750 BC. Their gods were called Anunnaki, or from those whose heavens came. And their technology was amazing. They invented the wheel, the plough, writing. So once they'd genetically engineered humans, the Anunnaki, they started spreading out, as you see in this map. It started from Africa, moved upwards towards Egypt, and then spread west and east. Now in Europe, the Neanderthals were drove to extinction by the Anunnaki because they made the best slaves. The proof of this is the 9,000-year-old Cheddar Man. It was found in Goth's Cave in Cheddar Grove, Somerset, England, a black Briton that lived 9,000 years ago. Now in 2011, the Baltic Sea anomaly was found. It's shaped like a spaceship. It's got a 1,000-foot trail which goes through a mountain or a hill. So it's gone with some force. It's not just like people say, a battleship gun. Well, that would have gone straight down, I suppose. It wouldn't have gone through a mountain and left a trail. This coincides with the spread of light eye colour too. Now the nebulous sky disk is the oldest known depiction of the Pleiades. You can see it in the top right. This was in 1600 BC and it's from Nebra, Germany. This part of the sky must have been very important to them. Also, the Pleiades are represented by the bull a lot of the time. You can see this in early European cave drawings, always of the bull. This is because the Pleiades were located in the Taurus constellation, and early Europeans knew where they came from. We all know the Anunnaki had elongated skulls, and this is why you find head binding in Anunnaki controlled territories. This includes Africa, North America, and South America. Now the Anunnaki created humans for slave workers. This is the different Sumerian cultures describing how they was created by the Anunnaki. They treated humans like slaves. They ate human sacrifices, worked people to death, and we was also pawns in their armies. The Indian Vedic text talks of a monkey army. The Pleiadian and Anunnaki War 2000 BC. So when the Pleiadians came to Earth, they was called the Hebrew or Hebrew by the Anunnaki. Once they'd landed, they set up a forward operating base in Europe, and then they went for the invasion of the Anunnaki territory. But the first invasion failed, with many prisoners taken, represented by the taming of the bull in the Gilgamesh epic. They was then taken into slavery. This is where the Hebrew people come from, in the biblical epic. Once the Anunnaki defeated the Hebrew, they invented games to remember their victory, like bullfighting and bull leaping. If you look at where the bullfighters actually pierced the bull, it's where in the Taurus constellation the Pleiades are found. Now the Pleiadians regrouped and the second attempt was made, but this time it was successful. This was a rescue attempt. Once the rescue attempt had gone smoothly, the Hebrew fought a bloody war against the Anunnaki in the Middle East. They seemed to be winning until one of the Sumerian epic nuked the Middle East from Africa. Evidence for this can be found in the Sinai Peninsula. Evidence can be found of this in the Sinai Peninsula by the blackened holes in the ground. The Sumerian text described the destruction. The flood swept over the land. After the flood had swept over the land, kingship had descended from heaven for a second time. It must have been an advanced civilization to take out the Anunnaki. Now the nuclear weapons was fired from Africa. This is in one of the Sumerian texts. In the Dead Sea you find alarming rates of radiation. Now, Alexander the Great. The first recorded incident regarding Alexander the Great and UFOs was recorded in 329 BC. Alexander decided to invade India and was attempting to cross the river Indus to engage the Indian army when gleaming silver shields swooped down and made several passes over the battle. Alexander the Great's story is also told in Islam under a different name. They call him Dal-Karairi. And when he went to the land, they said, Dal-Karairi, surely Gog and Magog make mischief in the land. Shall we pay you a tribute on condition that you should raise a banner between us and them? He said, I will make a fortified barrier between you and them. Bring me blocks of iron until when we had filled up the space between the two mountainsides. Now, Alexander was always depicted with horns on his head. Could this be anything to do with Pleiadians? As you notice from this picture on the left, there's a bull on the horse's rear. Now, the story tells of Alexander sealing an entrance, but where was the entrance? In the story it gives clues, subtle clues, but it's very hard to distinguish where exactly this happened. In my mind, there's two places this could be. This is either the Tibet or in the Sinai Peninsula. Blow until when he had made it fire, he said, bring me molten brass, which I may pour over it. So they were not able to scale it, nor could they make a hole in it, he said. This is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, he will make it level with the ground. And the promise of my Lord is ever true. Now, something to note here is he's pouring molten brass, so over it, and they would not be able to scale it, nor could they make a hole in it. This sounds to me like something in the ground, like you'd block up an hole in the ground. You wouldn't pour molten brass to make a wall and a gate, would you? So this is a very strange story. Now, Alexander Romance is some tales of Alexander's life, but mythical apparently. The legend of Gog and Magog and the gates were also in the Island Romance. Goth and Magoth are both kings of the unclean nations, driven beyond the mountain pass by Alexander, and blocked from returning by his new wall. Gog and Magog are said to engage in human cannibalism in the romances. They have also been depicted on medieval cosmological maps, sometimes alongside Alexander's wall. So who is Gog and Magog? A legend was attached to Gog and Magog by the time of the Roman period, that the gates of Alexander were erected by Alexander the Great to repel the tribe. Romanized Jewish historian Josephus knew them as a nation descended from Magog the Japhite, as in Genesis, and explained them to be the Scythians. In the hands of the early Christian writers they became apocalyptic hordes, and throughout the medieval period variously identified as the Huns, the Kazakhs, the Mongols, or other nomads. The Huns and the Scythians united to take Europe, but was defeated. So the Scythians were a group of Iranian people known as the Eurasian nomads, who inhabited the western and central Eurasian steppes from about the 9th century BC until the 1st century BC. So the Anunnaki and the Huns. The Huns were nomadic people who lived in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus and the Central Asia between the 4th century AD and the 6th century AD. According to European tradition, they were first reported living in the east of the Volga River, in the area that was part of Scythia at the time. The Huns' arrival is associated with the migration westward of the Scythian people, the Alans, by 370 AD. The Huns had arrived on the Volga and by 430 AD the Huns had established a vast, if short-lived, dominance in Europe. First of all, Attila the Hun's empire fell in 465 AD. The Khazar Empire went from 470 AD to 965 AD, and then the Akhenatsis from 1000 AD to present day. Now we know the Anunnaki was masters of DNA manipulation, genetics. Were the Mongols an Anunnaki cloned army? Now the same can be said about Islam and Allah. Is Allah the god of the Bible, or is Allah the moon god of ancient Arabia? Now a few things to note is, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan starts at the sighting new crescent moon. Apparently the Anunnaki fled to the moon, or they have a moon base. They pray while bowing their head towards the house of Allah in Mecca that houses a meteorite. The Muslim holy month of Ramadan starts at the sighting of a new crescent moon. Was Mecca a cloning facility? There was a few attempts made to take back Europe by the Anunnaki. The French Renaissance was one of these attempts, which it failed, but it did start capitalism, another mind control of the Anunnaki. Also the Bolsheviks in Russia. Now, the French then went to help the Americans. Anunnaki aided the US independence. The statue of Isis was awarded to America for their fight with their brothers. All we ever hear about the British Empire is how bad it was. But was this not the Hebrews freeing the slaves once again? This is my point of view. Britain released nearly half the world's population from slavery at the height of its power. In 1938, Britain released half the world's population from slavery. Once the Anunnaki take over a country, slavery is the first thing they implement. So you can tell an Anunnaki civilization just by looking at it. The Anunnaki, Ashkenazis and the Nazis are all the same thing. The Nazis were given highly advanced technology by someone. They were given anti-gravity, rocket technology, scientific technology. We was given one man, Tesla, and all he did was invent the precision approach radar, which won us the war. So the fall of the British Empire, the ex-British Empire colonists were invited to Britain. Britain knew the fate that they awaited them, so they invited them back. Can you imagine any other country doing this? Can you imagine Rome in the height of its power, freeing all its slaves and inviting them back to Rome? And most of the countries really badly declined after Britain left. So the descendants of the Dutch-speaking settlers are called the Boers in South Africa. Now we see the Boer goat. Was this representing Taurus? Is this the ancient war that's been going on for thousands of years? In this video I'd like to explain to you how I think the Sea Peoples are the Pleiadian Navy or the Hebrew Navy. So who are the Sea Peoples? The Sea Peoples are a purported seafaring confederation that attacked ancient Egypt and other regions of the East Mediterranean prior to and during the Late Bronze Age collapse 1200 to 900 BC. The truth is, nobody knows who the Sea Peoples are. Their origins are uncertain. The various Sea Peoples have been proposed to have originated from places that include Western Asian Minor, the Aegean, the Mediterranean islands and the southern Europe. They invaded Anatolia, Syria, Canaan, Phoenicia, Cyprus and Egypt. Unidentified in the eyes of most scholars, and the origins of the various groups are the source of much speculation. Existing theories variously propose equating them with several Aegean tribes, raiders from Central Europe, scattered soldiers who turn to piracy or who have become refugees, and links with natural disasters such as earthquakes or climate shifts. So scientists say all this chaos was caused by earthquakes or climate change. These unknown peoples destroyed all known civilization. As you can see by the black dots, these are the places that were destroyed. These were all major towns, major cities. This was all recorded in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and the book of Joshua and Judges in the Old Testament. 1200 BC seen a drastic change that ushered in the Iron Age and brought in democracy, but not before the Dark Ages, depicted with horns like the Vikings, even though we know they didn't wear them. Egyptian records, which refer to more than one of the 9 peoples, found in 6 different sources. From 1200 to 900 BC, this is when civilization collapsed. This is also the time period of Akhenaten, King Tut and Ramses II. This is also the time of the Exodus and also the Trojan War. The Sea People attacked in 1207 BC and again in 1177 BC, after which writings cease everywhere apart from Egypt, and it takes Egypt many hundreds of years to regain it. The Medinet Habu inscriptions, from which the Sea Peoples concept was first described, remains the primary source and the basis of virtually all significant discussions of them. Ramses III was the pharaoh in charge when the final battle. It seems that this must have been the person that launched the nuclear weapons from Africa. In Ramses III, Ramses wrote of 7 tribes that united against him. He was clearly dark-skinned by the pictures, and this was the last surviving civilization. It never recovered and it was never the same again. The Sea People just vanished afterwards. They conquered known civilization and then just vanished without any trace, unless you know what you're looking for. To my knowledge, once Ramses III fired the nuclear weapon, this caused a massive nuclear war. Also, as the Pleiadians moved down, they conquered the Hittite, the Canaanites. They would have mixed with them people and produced offspring. So these people would have been Pleiadian and Anunnaki blood. You see this in Iran nowadays. Some people fled to North India and some people fled to Europe. Now the Philistines, this is where people think the Sea People came from. As you can see, Dagon, the fish-headed god, it looks very much like a cardinal's priest hat. Also, Goliath was a Philistine. Goliath of Gath was the biblical warrior defeated by the young David in the book of Samuel. Goliath appears in chapter 2 of the Quran also, in the narrative of David and Saul's battle against the Philistines. Now in this picture, from 1888, You see the shield on the right hand side of the picture with the bull's head. Could this represent the Pleiadians? Now at 1200 BC, this is when all the empires start to fall. The Canaanite civilization falls, the Egyptian civilization barely holds on, and this is all in a 50-year period of each other. This ushered in the Dark Age, and it takes 200 to 300 years to recover. Then we start to see civilization reappear. We see the rise of the states in Greece. The Greek Dark Ages last from 1100 BC to 800 BC, and then the rebirth of Greece, known as the Archaic period, the revival of the Greek economy, and also the cultural and political revival. Now the Achaean warriors was also pictured with horned helmets. They ruled from 1260 to 1180 BC. They also took part in the destruction of Troy. Emil Farah, a Swiss Hittitologist who worked on the Bolgalex tablets in Berlin, said the Achaeans of pre-Homeric Greece were directly associated with the term land of Aniuwaya, mentioned in the Hittite text. Cadmus from Phoenicia, Deimos from Egypt, and Pelops from Anatolia each gained a foothold in the mainland Greece and were assimilated and Hellenized. Helen, Graphikos, Magnus, and Macedon were sons of the Deucalion and Pyrrhian, the only people who survived the Great Flood. Now, I want to talk about the Great Flood. In my eyes, this weren't the Great Flood as we think of it, as water. This was the Great Flood of the nuclear war, if you like. So, victims from history and mythology include, there was a lot of actual rape that went on at this time as well. You see this in Greece and in Italy. Was this the Anunnaki Navy, seeing as all the women had been destroyed and killed? Was this like, if you can imagine today, if there was a nuclear war and an aircraft carrier survived, it would just be full of men. And then they turned up at Greece and in Italy, which became Rome. And the stories tell you exactly what was happening. Antiope from Greek mythology, raped by Zeus. Cassandra from Greek mythology, raped by Ajax the Lesser. Chrysippus from Greek mythology, raped by his tutor Larius. Demeter was raped by Poseidon to become the mother of Desponia. She was also raped by Zeus to become the mother of Prosome. Also, the Sabine women were raped by the founders of Rome according to its legendary history, 753 BC. Now, wherever you see horned warriors, in my opinion, this is where the Hebairu or Pleiadians, this is their civilization. They was always depicted with horns. This goes to the samurai. The samurai started in 700 BC. If you notice, there's a pattern here. These civilizations start to rise about 700 BC again. Now, the samurai, they lasted till 1876 AD. Different horned warriors throughout the world. The Albanians, the Teutonic Knights, the Persians. Now, we all know that Vikings are always depicted with horns on their head, but didn't actually have horns on their helmets. This was just to represent them as being Pleiadian. A Greek force of approximately 7,000 men marched north to block the pass. In the middle of 480 BC, the Persian army, alleged by the ancient sources to have numbered over 1 million. Was this an Anunnaki cloned army? The Kurds and Iranians are Anunnaki and Pleiadian mixed bloods. The Turks have forbidden Kurds to speak their Indo-European language, but the Turks originally came from Mongolia and Central Asia. The Bahrains. Bahrain is Vedic Hinduism. It's a caste of people. Members are subdivided into numerous communities known as Gotras. Brahmin priests and teachers were engaged in attaining the highest spiritual knowledge. The term Brahmin meant originally one possessed of Brahman, a mysterious magical force widely known to modern anthropologists by the Malaysian word mana. So who are the Brahmin? By the end of the Vedic period dating 1500 BC to 1000 BC, the term was used for all members of the priestly class. This system, which was copied in part by other classes, has survived to this present day. The Rig Veda is the oldest and perhaps most sacred of all Hindu scriptures. It contains the mythological origin of the Brahmin. Now the Mahabharata is one of the two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India, the other being the Ramayana. The Mahabharata is an epic legendary narrative of the Kurukshetra wars and the fates of the Kaurava and the Pandava princes. Brahma is the core of the entire universe. Thus Brahma can also be described as the nucleus. Hence Brahmastra directly translates to nuclear weapon. The effects of the Brahmastra are mentioned in the epic. Mass destruction, drought, people evaporated within a minute, men and women became infertile and deformed, the nails and hair come off. There were few more powerful nuclear weapons above this. Nekata, given to Karna by Lord Indra after he gave away his Kadupra. This weapon resembles a rocket or a missile. It could be voice activated, had a rotating fiery tail and a gleaming head. It wasn't an arrow but a dart, similar to a javelin. Albeit very powerful, an intelligent machine, it pierced through the Gashrat's chest and shot to the sky. Like a rocket, it diminished into space. Narayantra, an artificial intelligent flying saucer. It hovers over the enemy troops and fires iron balls at those who wish to fight. The only way to survive is by bowing down before it. This machine spares those who duck down and give up before the weapon. The caller of this weapon can control its speed and intensity. However, once all the enemies give up, the weapon goes back. It is so powerful that the one who created it had Hindu professionalism of war in mind. Thus, if the caller decides to call it again, even after the enemies have surrendered, the Nasrata will kill the caller himself. So were nuclear weapons really used in the famed war? I think the answer is yes. 1.8 million people died in 1400 BC. The Adiprava of the Mahabharata describes Kauranva army to be 11 Ashkenazis and the Pandava army to be 7 Ashkenazis. That's almost over 1.8 million soldiers. Yudhishthira answered 1,660,000,000 and 20,000 men have fallen in this battle. Of the heroes that have escaped, the numbers is 240,000. A Sumerian tablet found in Iraq describes what I think is a battle. From the first drink, when he first dipped beneath the mantle, for the firmament's black nectar, he was destined to come. Centuries later they did come. In the most violent fashion they came, and disrupted the ways of old. And the people of the land were confined to their homes. The invaders fought one another. The invaders fought each other for the spoils of the land, for the black nectar. The gods looked sadly at what the people were doing, and took counsel among themselves for the remedy. All the while the invaders raged on. To the people's horrified witness, the invaders raged on. When the ugly omen appeared in the desert, the usurpers took no heed. There in the place of Dilnun, the great gods assembled. The great gods assembled in Dilmun. Nirhursag delivered the charge before Enki, and the fate of the peoples was sealed. The Roman poet Virgil refers to this belief when he depicts Aeneas as escaping the fall of Troy, coming to Latium to found a line of iron descending to Romulus, first king of Rome. In Sardinia, archaeological remains suggest the presence of sea people. Some archaeologists believe that the Sheridan are identifiable with the Nugeric Sardinians. As you can see by these knives, it was very advanced, and the walls are so thick. To me, this is where the Pleiadians set up a forward operating base. You can see some strange symbols. If you look at the Nordic Sardinians, there's some very strange weapons and very advanced things. The Sumerians referred to the gods as the Din-Jir, which when spelled out resembles a multi-stage rocket. The ancient Egyptians also depict such a vehicle in the pharaoh's ascent to heaven. This is a Celtic helmet with coral and bronze decorations. This was found around 400 BC in a tomb in southern Italy. As you can see, a horned helmet again. So the pre-Roman Italians, or the Pleiadians, all had horned helmets. This goes to the Samnite warriors, South Italiac. These were all Pleiadians. And it was all around the same time, around 400 BC.